Okay, we're continuing. This is part 5, Hidden History of Modern Science. We're going through the ancient monasteries, monks and stuff. We progressed to the level of the Carolingian Renaissance with Charlemagne, and this was his great scholar, Alcuin. Okay, and Alcuin was like the smartest guy in Europe at that time, and he helped Charlemagne to build a great academic center. Okay. And he was the most learned man in Christendom. And he also recruited all the best scholars in Europe to help teach for King Charles, Charlemagne. Okay? And here is Charlemagne, the great king. The Holy Roman Emperor started in 800 AD. And this is Europe, making a comeback, okay, in terms of its education. Because they lost their leisure time without all their slave labor, so to speak, when the Roman Empire fell. And you need some leisure time to have educated people. All right, one thing, too, I'll just briefly mention here in terms of the scientific achievements of Europe. They developed the eyeglasses, okay, and that was a wonderful thing because all these men and women who wanted to read as they got older but, had problems with their vision, they now were able to read. Same thing in the monastery, the monks, so the whole country became more educated when people had eyeglasses, reading glasses. Okay, the next is the great famous story of Abelard and Eloise. So he was a great Aristotelian scholar, the genius of Europe, Abelard, and his student was Eloise, and they fell in love. But the professors were not allowed to be married and not allowed to date their students. And so he got her pregnant. It was the big scandal, and he pissed off her uncle, and her uncle did something to Abelard not good. That's a very famous love story about star-crossed lovers. Abelard and Eloise. Okay. And he was the intellectual celebrity of the 1100s. He emphasized the universe was rational. Okay, one guy, I don't know. Oh, then here is a story about Abelard and Eloise written by the French scumbag Jean-Jacques Rousseau in 1761. And it was the best-selling novel. It was sort of a romantic novel. And Schopenhauer, the German genius of literature, said that he thought it was one of the 4 best novels ever written. And all these women started writing love letters to Rousseau, the biggest scumbag in the world. Rousseau had 5 children, and he abandoned all 5 of his children to an orphanage. He's like the worst parent in the history of the world. Okay, so, I like Abelard. He was a great man, but Rousseau is a scumbag. All right, so now we're going to talk about taking things up another notch in the development of scholarship and learning in Europe. This is Albert the Great, Magnus, for great, a polymath. So a polymath is somebody who knows multiple different things. A prodigy is just somebody who learns fast, gets there first. But a genius is somebody who transforms a field, okay? So Albert the Great was the mentor to St. Thomas Aquinas, and they really helped get the university system going with scholasticism. And scholasticism, what they would do is they would, put out a question, and then they would first of all review what had been written about it by earlier scholars, and then they would have a debate on it, sharing their own ideas. And here is Thomas Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, the son of the Dominicans, to shed light on things. His book, Summa Theologica, summarizing all the useful knowledge of the world up to that time, and the church. And then the Catholic Church ran the university system in the Latin language throughout Christendom, and professors could go back and forth from school to school because they all spoke Latin. And Thomas Aquinas was like the Aristotle of his day, summarizing all the useful knowledge of his day. He wasn't just doing religion, he was summarizing everything known that he could. And he also loved Aristotle, studied all of Aristotle's work, and in a sense baptized Aristotle, made him more acceptable to the Catholic universities so that he could be taught in all the universities, because some people considered him a little bit blasphemous. And so this was tremendously beneficial because Aquinas emphasized that the universe is rational, God made a rational universe, man is rational, therefore he can study God's universe, we're created in the image of God, therefore we can be creators too, we're in his image, we can thus understand what he does. So he sort of called mankind back down to earth and said, study nature. When you study nature, you honor God. So that was a big deal rather than all these theologians, coming up with different theories about heaven when they don't even know what they're talking about. Okay. So Aquinas basically unified faith and reason. This is one of his visions. We had a vision, he went before Christ, and he's like, Christ, I've been trying, but I just can't really accomplish that much. And Christ said, oh, Thomas, you're doing great. I'm happy with you. Okay, here's another Thomas Aquinas, the big scholar. And the guy really was a genius. I mean, he knew a lot. Okay, that was the big thing about him. We covered that. I don't think I got much more to say on it. Let me see if I got any other good slides. Oh, here's just a quote by Charles Murray, author of Human Accomplishment. Aquinas made the case, eventually adopted by the Catholic Church, that human intelligence is a gift from God, and that to apply human intelligence to the understanding of the world is pleasing to God. Aquinas taught that faith and reason are complementary. Okay, sounds good. Oh yeah, another thing too is Aquinas refused the double truth idea of Averroes. He's another scholar of Aristotle who tried to say, well, there's a theological truth and there's a scientific truth. And Aquinas said, no, there's only one truth. Okay. You might see things from slightly different angles, but there's only one truth, and that's an important point. And like I said, you can't really have science if you don't have Christianity, because otherwise, whenever there's money involved, and if somebody's got no ethics, they just go for the money, and then that's a common situation. You degrade the information. Okay, well, that's it for today. I hope you found that helpful.